Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day and an even better week. Well, what will this topic be today? You're probably wondering, although the title's probably given it away by now already anyway, so let's just go with that, right? So, today we're going to talk about justice in your organizations. Obviously, we can look around all of culture and see where there's so much, unjust, activity going on, where justice doesn't really reign supreme. And even oftentimes, justice in the end becomes this long delayed process where people who are affected rarely receive any kind of justice, right? I mean, to heal is the ultimate justice. But to pan back a little bit and look at our organizations specifically and how we operate within them, kind of have to ask, so you want justice? So when we ask that question, so you want justice, what would that mean? Well, that means first that we have to assume that there's just things happening to begin with, right? You want justice, that is for a corrective measure, corrective action to unjust things happening. Well, what are the obvious unjust things? Well, the obvious things is when we don't give 100%, right? Now we know even our 100% isn't perfection, right? We do our best. That's what 100% is. I'm doing my best. And there are times when our best isn't good enough and things get messed up and we have to fix those things, right? Could be product, could be service. You didn't follow up with a customer. You didn't do this. There's so many things, right? And we've all fallen into and had missteps along our journey. That's us being human. Hopefully nothing too catastrophic, but those things can happen. But even more important, that we bring our best, right? That is just. So for us to want justice means we have to be just in how we approach and we, give our efforts doing the jobs that we're hired to do, right? But from an organizational perspective, what are some other things where justice, if we want justice, what does that mean? Well, it means that we treat our teams, right, as members of the organization. And as members of the organization, they should be developed. So let's use a workout regimen, right? A human body, or an organization is regarded with the same rights and protections that a human being, in the United States anyway, has, okay? Okay, so let's go at this from a workout and fitness perspective. Would it make any sense to develop just your arms and not your legs, or your legs and not your arms, right? Or your back and not your legs? See where I'm going with this? Justice, being just and being just to yourself, to our human body, is to what? Make sure that all aspects are growing and developing, right? Strengthening. It's building our strength. It's building our resilience. It's building our flexibility to bounce back. It's building the cohesion, eye-hand coordination, for example, right? Those sorts of things that are critical in some tasks, right? Most tasks. These are critical things. So if you don't develop some of that, your ability to think and process, your ability to collaborate, innovate, your ability to cooperate, right? Your ability and your patience, working on some of those things, our patience, and this is going inside now, but to develop those things. Now we have just as much responsibility as individuals as organizations do to provide the training and provide insight and team building and all those things, right? But if an organization doesn't do that, that's not just, right? So justice in this case is, if you're an organization, to go, do we have a healthy organizational culture? I can throw it into that that soup, right? And say, are all the ingredients that we require for this soup, are they in there? And if they're not, we need to dissect and go, okay, let's reassess and let's improve and make sure we have all the ingredients to provide a rich, flavorful soup, right? And if you like stew, then use stew as your analogy. If it's just a meal, hey, we want, you know, a well balanced and a varied but tasteful meal presented, right? Flavorful as well. And so you should handle your team with no less forethought. I mean, look, folks, if we can do this at the gym, if we can do this when we prepare food, if we can do this when we grow a garden, can we do this for our teams? I mean, I think it's completely possible. But what's also, it's not funny, but it is ironic that we'll cherry pick a training program and throw it right down through our HR and training support staff if you have that size of an organization. If you're smaller, you don't. So you're just kind of doing what you can as a leadership and support team. But we'll throw something at our team thinking, oh, well, this will be good, right? Without really looking at how comprehensive it is. The difficulty, though, for small, medium-sized businesses is they can't afford many, many $1 million programs, right, that large corporations can afford. So therefore, they don't get some of that, and probably they don't need it because more often than not, those require an internal bureaucracy to manage. For example, if I'm going to buy into a program, but I need to have 5 of my people working this program, right? That works for a large corporation. It doesn't work so well if you're a small or medium-sized business, right? The economics just don't ring out real quickly. So the affordability, right, isn't always accessible. So it's very difficult for small, medium-sized businesses to tackle this, to create justice, right? It's like I've got a garden and I want to grow it, but I'm struggling to find some of the resources I need, right? Maybe it's the, insert resources here. Maybe it's access to irrigation. Pardon me. Maybe it's access to irrigation. Maybe it's access to fertilizer. Maybe it's, all the things. Perhaps I need to have care and other requirements that do require more people to help, but I can't afford those. So what can I do? How can I overcome these struggles? And so problem solving becomes a huge part of that. That's also another reason why people like myself can come in and analyze what you have going on and help your team facilitate some of the brainstorming and some of the events to overcome some of the challenges you have. But the main thing is to realize that there's a lack of justice here. If you're trying to do a good thing, right, and it's kind of sad because small, medium-sized businesses definitely are wanting to produce really great product and service for their customers, and sometimes they just don't have the juice to make that happen. So sometimes they will operate kind of bare bones, right? And they're operating bare bones. What's left then? Well, what's left then is to go, what can I do with my team, right? Providing that justice, providing more justice in the organization to develop them to help me become a better problem solver, better and collaborate better. You see where this goes? You develop your team, and then what happens? Now you can overcome some of these things. Because I guarantee you, probably 80% of your solutions are sitting right in the seats of the team that happens to be working for you. They have the answers. They've probably given you nuggets or an actual solution or two that you put on the shelf and thought, I can't really do that. But did you really vet it? Did you let one of them vet it? Did you let them run with the ball and see the viability, right? Did you pursue it deeply enough? Did you get your team together to say, hey, this is some things we're thinking about. What do you think? Because it may not be that solution, but maybe that was a part of the solution, or that was a portal to a solution, right? So justice is developing your culture, right? Your organizational culture, so that what? Now you have strong, back to the workout analogy, you got strong arms, strong legs, right? Your back, all the things. You're more flexible, you're resilient, you're able to respond, you're able to handle more weight, you're able to respond to customer requests and or flex to do other things and expand and grow, right? If I'm working out and I can say lift more now, well, now my capacity is increased, right? And the capacity for your organization increases what? When you are just in your approach to your team, right? So this is pretty straightforward, hopefully. But we also have to look at this from the team's perspective. It's not just to come in and give 80% or 75% effort, or not to manage your time well, or not to care for the resources that you have, right? If you're a member of the team, you should be operating as if that organization, as if you own it, as if you own it. If you operate in that manner, then you're bringing a justness to what you do. You are bringing a justness to that organization, and that justness is paying off for your team members. That's paying off for the organization, but it primarily it's the customers that you're serving first, and then the rest comes back, right? So it's very important that all of us understand that, we want justice. Okay, well, if we start to pick into that, we've talked about providing our best efforts and collaborating and innovating, but let's flip over to the dark side for a minute. If you want justice for something that happened a month ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, whatever, in your organization, and something was wrong, and we'll just say that it was in a gray area. Obviously, if it's super black and super white, in contrast to what should go on, it's probably been handled. And if it hasn't, why are you still there? I mean, come on, folks. But if it's in a gray area and how things are handled, right? And perhaps there is a gray area because your operations plan or your O plan, there isn't enough specificity in how you conduct, your internal operation. So what happens is that within that lack of specificity in that gray area, things start slipping through the cracks. Then the organization comes back and starts to, wave the finger at the team members when there wasn't specificity, right? Sometimes, and I've seen this before, where organizations will be too general in their operations plans because they want to be able to flex. Look, folks, if you're a leader in your organization and you're putting together your YOLK plan, be as specific as possible about as much as possible. And where there needs to be review or something figured out, write it as such. Don't write or negate putting something in there. Well, we should just be smart. Let's just do the smart thing. Let's just be right. Look, folks, the smart thing for one person, not having all the information, is going to be different for somebody else who also doesn't have, but they have the other half of the information, right? Neither are not smart. I should say both are smart, right? Both are smart, but you opened it up in a vague way so that people who don't have all the information respond and take the best actions they can take with the information that they have. If you're not empowering your team, again, it's back to justice. You created an injustice, and now you're hammering people who didn't do a thing to didn't follow a step that you thought they should, or all the things, right? Insert an infinite number of scenarios here. But now you turn around, you're trying to hammer these folks, right? Unjustly. Why? Because you weren't specific. Why? Because you didn't think it through. Why? Because you didn't get your team together to collaborate. Why? I can keep peeling this onion, but ultimately what I get to is you're not being just, right? You're not being just. You're not approaching your organization in a just way. And you're leaving too many gaping holes and gaps in specificity about what you do, and then complaining and wondering why people fall through those gaps. Wake up, snap your fingers and snap out of it, okay? You're creating your own problems when you don't develop your team, when you're not specific, when your policies, processes, and procedures are vague, or they don't address enough of the issues, or they aren't growing, they aren't living documents that your team can build upon because you're getting smarter. Remember, we're increasing our organizational fitness here, right? We're being just in doing that, right? If you're doing those things, you're going to find that you're getting great results. But you're not getting great results. And why aren't you getting great results? Go back to those gaps. All you have to do, folks, is start peeling the onion, right? You want me to shoot straight with you? I'm shooting straight with you. Peel the onion back. Look for the gaps. That's where you're falling through. You and your team are falling through the cracks. The gaps that you've created. Why? Not because you're bad. Not because you had necessarily unjust intent. You're falling through the cracks because you didn't take it to the next level. You didn't go deep enough. You didn't think. You didn't do enough risk analysis. You didn't ask the whys deeply enough. You didn't ask or do the what if scenarios. Hey, what if line 3 goes down? What do we do then? What if machine 4 on line, or machine B on line 5 goes down? What do we do then? You need to be doing these what if scenarios down to that level so that you have a response. Are you just going to have your people stand around, staring at the sky, staring out the window? Come on, folks. What happens when your power goes out and it's not going to come on for 2 or 3 days? What do you do then? Right? What if you have a water leak or pipes break? What are you going to do then? You need to do these what if scenarios. That is being just. You're being just in your organizations, not only just for your team, not only for your organization, it's for the customer. Are you going to leave your customers hanging because power went out or you have water leaks and all the things, awful floods or something, right? Now, sometimes a major catastrophe could just decimate you, and there's no quick response to that. But if it's product and service, well, do you have off-site warehousing set up for emergencies, even if it's small? Do you have a storage unit up on a hill somewhere for flood situations, right? Look, folks, I'm just popping this off the top of my head. And small and medium-sized businesses can afford, a storage unit, okay? Those aren't ridiculous. You can manage that. This is one idea from one guy that you're watching a video of. Imagine when you get 5, 10 of your team members together to start doing the what if scenarios for your product and service, right? Your fallback plan, right? Your contingency plan, your emergency response plan. Even more importantly, the safety of your team. That is obviously the highest priority is the safety of your team and yourselves, right? So, and for your team, no different. Look, folks, if you're a team member, the safety of yourself and your entire organization is a top priority. But it isn't your only priority. It is one of your priorities, right? The first one, and then everything else comes secondarily to that. That's justness, right? Because the health and safety of our team is vital, right? It's vital for everybody in culture. I mean, let's just get down to it. The health and safety is a justice issue, right? And ultimately, you can take everything back to health and safety. If you're not providing a product or service, you may be depleting your customers of resources that they need for the health and safety of their products and service, or their, end users. So everything has to be seen and handled in a just way, with a critical eye, where your heart and your heart and your head, my heart's in my head apparently, your heart and your head are working together to to take care of customers. Everybody is your customer, right? So just tapping a little bit into the justice. You have to start seeing things from a just scenario. Obviously, we know if an organization or members of the team are doing nefarious things, they are not being just. And it should be pretty obvious why, when there's a lack of justice there, things change, right? That should be a no-brainer. But it's not justice, right, to throw people away on a whim. That is not justice, right? Causing undue harm affects the health and safety and livelihood of people on your team. So when you're just treating people as a throwaway, it would be like not working out, worse than not working out your legs when you're working out your arms, and vice versa. It would be worse than that, right? It would be worse than, it would be neglecting that, right? It'd be like taking a shower and never, this arm never gets washed, right? So, I mean, kind of a wacky scenario, but it's neglect. And you can't neglect people. That is a lack of justice, right? That is not regarding the health and safety and livelihood of anyone. Because remember, you need all those things. That's formulaic. You need all of that for your customers to be served and for your organization to thrive. So anything you do to tip that is unjust, right? The scales of justice. And look, folks, just going to put it right to you. If you're doing something nefarious or manipulative, that energy will come back to you. Those scales will eventually balance themselves out. And the result is never going to be good for those who are taking unjust or doing unjust, manipulative, or nefarious things. That is a universal law, right? Physics proves it out. Everything proves it out, right? If I throw that boomerang, right? I throw that boomerang over there, it's going to come back. And it's usually coming back 3 times faster and a lot more force. And usually it's not going to feel good when it hits. So keep this in mind. What you put out comes back to you. If you're treating your customers poorly, if you're creating products that are unsafe or hazardous, if you're doing nefarious things to your team, if you're allowing people on your team to treat other members on your team in nefarious and manipulative ways, all of these things is a boomerang that's going to come back to you, right? Because justice may not be today, may not be tomorrow, maybe years from now. But those scales will eventually balance. And when they do, some folks are going to be surprised by that. It's just how the universe works, folks. Take it up with physics and the divine. It just is what it is. On that note, remember, hit that good green domino, right? And you're creating justice when you do that, to uplift, motivate, inspire, and encourage folks. And when you do that, not only help culture transform, but we're transforming our own lives, right? And just like people putting negative things out into the universe and bad things come back 3 times or more, harder, we put good things out there, then good things will return, right? We're putting good, intentions, good for being just, right? Being just to everyone in our lives, not only organizationally, but all throughout culture. Then that also returns. It may not always return a day from now, a month from now, a year from now, but it'll return. And you have to be open, optimistic, and positive about that. All right, folks, hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember to hit like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.